and welcome to class. Here in this video we'll discuss last time we voted of course. Now we're making a game. Here we're going to talk about the classes and the files that you would need for your game project. If you were making any type of game using some kind of API like SDL, SFML, or one of the other libraries like OpenGL and what have you. Usually your entry port is your main file, your main.cpp file. To access it, we're using Vim. We load the file in, and you press enter here. Alright, so for this project, as we talked about before, in the last video, we created a game file called game header. Would probably be a better way if we're making CPP files. We probably should do things that probably should be HPP or what have you. It usually .h refers to, I believe, it's compile dependent. That may be referring to traditional C. Alright, so we made a game object. We made a game class. They had a game object, and we created a function called start game. Alright, in the last video, I guess. Alright, so let's go back and look at we've played with the one of the files. Let's look at the game class file. So in order to load up the game class file, we can type vim and then we load up the game.cpp file. As you notice, this is a C++ file. These are probably supposed to be .hpp files. We may change that later or not. Usually you would have two other files in your folders. One for the finals, usually for your source code when you're finished with the program. That's where you save out when it works. You put it in the source file, right? And then you put your resources in RS like the music and the PNG images for your game projects. This is my game engine, so this is just how I do my files. The program may look a bit different than mine. Also, let's look at my implementations in here. I'm loading up the game.cpp files here. I have you'd say void : use the scope resolution operator to access each one of the functions and where we implement all the particular work there. So let's go over to the game class file. That's the game that we would vim. This time we press up on the keyboard and we will load up the game .h file here in the directory. And we're using the Vim terminal editor. If you'd like to know more about the Simple Directmedia Layer, I have a course down below you can check out. We're not going into all the things about SDL. We're just going to start. We're just coding. If you want to know more about the Simple Directmedia Layer, how to make games like I do or like anyone else would, just look at the course down below in the description. So anyway. So let's look at some of the functions that we're going to implement this game class here. I'm using pragma once. That prevents circular inclusion. For each one of the game header files, the classes, they would go here. If we're using the Simple Directmedia Layer in order to add files, insert it to edit, you press I to edit the text here. This is for the SDL2 subsystems. This supports PNG images. This next one is for music files, music and sound effects like .wave or .mp4 or 3 or something like that. I'm not sure if 3 is supported anymore, but whatever. Anyways, this would be there. Here, this would be for support .ttf, like for fonts like Times New Roman. If you know what I mean, the TTF, the font that you would use for writing. I'm not sure if that's how you spell Times New Roman. The font, right? So this is font. This is for your font libraries in the SDL. These are extension libraries here. This is the traditional SDL library for your projects. All right, so we made a game class, and that's generally the center part of your program. We have access specifiers. We made a constructor and deconstructor for the game class. But here down below, we have in the private section. We would put parts of the program that relate to just the class itself. Here, we would need SDL. You need a window to show your window. You need an event to poll events for keyboard presses and mouse clicks, and also you need a renderer to show information to the screen later when we get to drawing graphics on the screen. So, anyways, let's look at some the game loop. If you like to know more about game loops and things. For your projects, watch my video down below. We won't go into all that today. But anyway, so we're going to talk about what we're going to try to implement in the next few videos or whatever for this game engine that we're making, that we're going to use for cross-platform development for just as an indie game. We may want to change the graphics, make another game. So we're going to keep the same engine and try to expand on it. These usually your variable name things here. You need a naming convention. I don't really have any space between here. One of the first functions I made was this this function here for initializing the SDL subsystem. See, I have turn on SDL. I have to turn on each one of these extra particular subsystems independently for using SDL. All right, we want to load in. We're going to try to load in resources. So if you have a failure you want it to return, in case the resource was not in the directory, this could this is something that you need to do ahead of time. What tries and there's other ways of seeing if else statements to see if the file did not load or didn't load. If it loads, cool. If it didn't load, that's bad too, right? So you need to make sure that it works before you program up, because you may get to a certain part of the game and the boss is not there or the sound's not there and the game crashes. You don't know why. So you need to know that ahead of time before you turn the program on. All right. We talked about before we had a start program here. That's where our game loop would be. We need to take in input actions to the keyboard or the mouse. We're making this game with the keyboard, although the Simple Directmedia Layer supports game controllers and game pads. I have a game controller around the house somewhere. If I find it, we'll talk about making Game Boy, well, not really Game Boy, but SNES-like controls or game pads for 12-button controllers later. But anyway, we'll talk. There's gonna be some game logic here that handles. That's where we would put. That's where I'm going to put the collision detection and things. We need to regulate the. We need to update values. We need to draw the tile maps. We need to draw the player to the screen. We need to show the score, and we need to finally clean up and free surfaces using the Simple Directmedia Layer. All right, so let's give an overview of what else we have in the Simple Directmedia Layer. We can start implementing functions, I guess, using the Simple Directmedia Layer, and we can kind of test and see that the programs work or they don't work. Or you can look at what I'm saying or what you're doing and see can you fix implement these code things yourself. Because it's not that hard to kind of do these things if you know a little bit about the Simple Directmedia Layer already. Or some people just have 3 functions here. They would make classes based on for the tile map. They'll make a file for input handlers. They'll make a game. You need to, of course, have other files like a game state manager and what have you for to transition between the menu state of the game for you and your projects as you go along using the Simple Directmedia Layer. All right, so :WQ. I don't know if this even compiles, but we'll take a look at it and see what else I have in the folder. Press L to show us in here. I have a file. The other files that go along with your program. You'll have a game file and you'll have your game header. So let's load up as we did a minute ago. Let's load up the. We're going to load in the game.cpp file and see can we try to implement some of these functions using the Simple Directmedia Layer. Of course, we need to load in load up the Simple Directmedia Layer. So I'll try to make these videos as short as possible. So we may have to stop in a minute, but to enable the Simple Directmedia Layer, as you may have read or saw online somewhere, to load in SDL, you have this SDL_init, and then we pass in flags for the Simple Directmedia Layer. We may swap over to a different compiler for another video, so it may be a little easier for those of you not familiar using the terminal, or those of you using Windows. I may use code blocks or one of the other compilers, and we'll talk about how to set it up and use SDL in that compiler, which may be a little easier for other users watching this video series. All right, but so anyway, so we load in SDL2. We don't say SDL2, yes, we say SDL_init, and then we need each one of the particular flags. Some people load them in as flags, each one of the particular subsystems. So if they're installed in your system, this is Linux, so things work a little different on Linux than they do in Windows. So we need to install SDL, SDL_init, and SDL_init everything to enable all the SDL subsystems, and then usually if it returns, it'll say 0 or whatever. But there's other SDL systems. Also, I need to do some error checking here. We'll put that in as a to-do list here. Let's put that here as a note. People usually do this in their program to do error checking. And then other systems we need to work on. We'll look at the documentation for those here, and now add them as we want to add mixer image TTF or something. Alright, since these functions are void, they shouldn't return with any error if I try to compile it. Since all these functions are returning void here, like here at the bottom, I use image quit to turn off SDL's image related library. I don't have a file to load in, so that sometimes on some compilers, if I don't have the file, the file's not in the directory, or I initialize functions and don't declare them in the program. It'll cause an error or crash the program. So I just have them down here as just an example if we know what we're doing initially. All right, so we use mixquit to turn off the mixer library. TTF quit, I believe, turn off the true text font format, so whatever the library is called for text font on the screen. As you know, a lot of games have text font. You can find and import your own text font. It requires a size and STL, and you need SDL quit to turn off the SDL subsystem finally. Also, you need to destroy the window, and this is our cleanup function we're talking about here. You need to destroy the window, and you just free whatever surface memory for your program so the music does not run in the background if music is enabled in your game. Alright, so in order to save files in SDL, in the terminal, you press :WQ. Alright, let's go see, can we compile this. If you compile in the terminal, it'll tell you what type of errors you have. There's a way to make a build file or a make file, which we may just cover. Well, you can learn about in my series down below, through the active learning approaches I do in a lot of my courses. Anyway, so you type in the name of your compiler. There's other compilers out there like GCC, and there's Clang. I think it's Clang Plus or something. There's other guys that you can use. I usually use GCC because that's the one I started using first. So this is what I use. You type in the main file .cpp. Sometimes they give you a compiler if you don't put all the files in here. Sometimes you'll have to put each one of these extra files on this list here. There's a way that you can just make I think you put a star after one of these. I think you do star or something. You can look it up online. And then all the CPP files, it'll compile all the CPP files like that, or all the H files or whatever in the directory. So there's a way to do that in your make file. So you don't have to, you can just type, instead of making the G++, you can type, you can just say make here, and it'll do, if you have a make file or a build file here, a /build, and it'll just run and it'll make the executable for you, like you would do, like you click a button in SDL, or using code blocks, which we may go over in a moment, for that particular project. Alright, so, in order to compile the file, since I compiled a bunch of files, I can just press up on the keyboard, and I should have some arguments, I hope, about how to compile a file here. So when I press enter here, it may return an error. I think it's giving me the same error from the last time I made a file. It's game.h. And then, well, anyway, we'll fix that in a minute, in the next video, and we'll get back on that in a second.